Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to a special episode of the Hand of the Day. Today's hand comes from a thread I found on Reddit by Nasty Poker, who just posted this thread about a couple hours ago. And I found this thread, I wanted to review this hand and hopefully stir a conversation up and get a conversation going within the poker community. So this hand, he's playing 50-100 no limit hold'em online. And we're playing 6 max, and this game is going to play totally different than your average hand of the day. So we're going to get into some concepts that aren't going to be relevant for a lot of poker games that people are playing in, but it's going to give insights into some more advanced concepts, things that are going on at the high levels of poker today. So I hope this video is informative, and I would love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. So be sure to leave your thoughts in a comment below at the end of this video so I could hear from you guys on your feedback. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. We are the hero in the big blind with Jack 10 offsuit. Big blind raises like 3.5 big blinds under the gun. Now, normally under the gun opens are very, very strong, but in online 6 max cash games, they're going to be a little bit wider because you're playing 6 max. So people can afford to open, depending on the player, some people might open as little as 10-15%, some people might open 15-20%. It really depends on the player, what their actual range is going to be. But in general, it's not just only going to be big pairs and big suited aces. They might have some low suited connectors and stuff like that. More hands are going to be involved in an under the gun open than normal. So the cutoff calls and probably has a decent hand. We don't really know too much about the cutoff. And we're in the big line with Jack 10 offsuit. So we have a very clear call here. We're closing the action. We're getting a good price. Our hand has decent playability post-flop. This is definitely a call. In general, in the big blind, you're going to want to be defending a wider range of hands, meaning more hands, because you're going to have the best price and you guarantee that you realize your equity by seeing the flop. So defending a lot of hand from the big blind makes sense. This hand is definitely one of them. Let's go 3 ways to the flop. The flop comes down Jack 8-5 with a flush draw. We check, which is very standard. We're going to be checking all of our hands here for balance. The under the gun original opener checks, which is a play that I like a lot. We'll talk more about that in a second. And the cutoff now bets 250, which he's going to be doing a lot of the time. Anytime it goes check here, if he has any sort of draw, any sort of piece of this board, even a mid pair to bottom pair, small pocket pair type of hand, he's probably going to bet this board, try and win the pot, and for protection. So his range is very wide, meaning there are a lot of hands he's betting this flop with. Now it's on us, and we have a very clear call. Not much to say about that. Raising is a little bit too loose, overplaying our hand. Of course, we can't fold with top pair, backdoor straight draw. We call. Now the villain makes it 1.4K, which puts everybody in a really tough spot. Cutoff folds, and it's back on us. Now let's talk about the villain's hand range here for a second. What types of hands can he have? Well, it's conceivable to me that he would check the flop 100% of the time. And the reason is because this flop misses a lot of his under the gun overcard hands. Ace king, ace queen, king queen, all missed. Other hands don't have a great playability, like mid pocket pairs, small pocket pairs, and so it makes sense that he's going to check this flop. Like ace x suited doesn't have much playability unless it's spades, so it makes sense for him to check this flop with his bluffs. To balance that out, good players that are using a more game theory optimal or GTO playing style are checking with strong hands as well, so that their opponents can never figure out what they have. So it's conceivable to me, at least it's believable to me, that when he check raises here, he could still have strong hands. It's not like this is automatically a bluff. He can definitely have hands as weak as ace jack for value, queens, kings, aces, sets, and then some draws. So I think all those hands are in his range. I'm assuming that these players at 50-100 no limit hold'em online are going to be playing a balanced strategy, which means they're not going to only have nuts or only have air. They're going to have some strong hands like we talked about, and then some bluffs, maybe like some 10-9 suiteds or 6-7 suiteds or ace x of spades, or maybe even something as weak as king queen of hearts with 2 overs, a backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. Those hands all make sense. Now some people say, well, Alec, we should just fold here on the flop because we're out of position and we're beat against all these bad hands, and if our opponent has a draw, we're beat against all his good hands, and if opponent has a draw, then we're out of position and he has a lot of equity. But if you look at this screenshot here that I ran on a program called Poker Cruncher, this is what the pros are using nowadays. This is called a poker equity calculator. To keep it simple, this basically just calculates your hand versus your opponent's range of hands that he could have. Now, let's not get too specific here. We can all go for days and weeks about what exactly our opponent's range is here, and a lot depends on how he plays pre-flop and whatnot. But if you just look at the equity that's highlighted, you can see here we have about 60%. Now again, this might not be perfect. We might have 70% if he's looser. We might have 50% if he's tighter. But the point is that we are definitely above the equity we need to call here. We're getting decent pot odds, and we have to continue calling. Otherwise, we're just going to be too exploitable. If we're folding this hand, we're going to be folding a little bit too often here, and we don't want our opponent to be able to get away with the bluff every time. So I think we have to continue here with this hand. We just have too much equity to fold out this hand. So while I would be folding here on the flop some of the time, maybe with something like pocket nines, sure, I'm going to fold that. Jack 10 is just too strong to fold, in my opinion. We call, which I like, and let's take a turn. The turn comes an ace of diamonds, which is a pretty bad card for us. Not only could this have improved our opponent's bluffs to now have made top pair, something like ace X suited, maybe even ace queen is bluffing here on the flop with like ace queen of hearts, ace king of hearts, maybe even something like ace 10 of spades, ace 5 of spades, ace 4 of spades, now all made they all made a hand that's better than ours, but also we didn't pick up any equity. We could have picked up more equity with a 9 or a 7 or a 10 or a jack, but of course that didn't come. So this is not a good card for us. It's also bad because if our opponent was bluffing with something like queen 10, that hand picked up more equity on his end, and this is a better card for our opponent's range than it is for our range. So we check here, and I would expect our opponent to be betting this turn almost always. If he's bluffing, this is a great card for him to bluff. Now, what should we be doing here? Well, this is a really tough spot. Let's go back to this equity calculator for a second here. You can see here, against the same exact range of hands, this turn changes our equity. It goes from 60% to 33%. So when he bets half the pot, we're pretty much breaking even by calling here. There could be some case for getting away from our hand at this point. This is a really bad card for our range. We can call the turn with some better hands. We can have some aces in our range. We can have some ace high flush draws, maybe. We can have some other draws that just play better, like even a straight draw flush draw or a pair with a flush draw. We can even have turned some two pairs with some ace eights, some ace jack type hands. So we could maybe fold this hand and not be getting exploited too often, but it's tough. I mean, it's a tough spot. We're getting a really good price, and that's the biggest case for calling here. I might find a reason to let this one go just because this is such a bad card for our range, and we know that we're not going to just face a bet on the turn. We're also going to face a bet on the river, which makes this really tough to play because we know that this turn bet is setting it up for a big river bet, and we don't really want to have to call twice being in a break-even spot. So I think I would just let this hand go on the turn after reviewing it a little bit more in depth here in the lab, but I can't blame my opponent, my hero in the hand, I can't blame the hero in the hand for calling because he is getting such a good price. I still like a fold a little bit better, but as played, we opt to call, and let's take a river. Comes an offsuit 4, completing the 6-7 straight, but the flush draw misses. We check, and now our opponent, as expected, bets 5.1k. Now, in this point, if we run back to the lab, you can see here the same exact range just changes street by street. We have about 20% equity. So just looking at this, I would say this is probably a fold because you can see here that we don't have the right price to call, but this gives a little bit more credence into why I would fold on the turn. I mean, this is really one of the best rivers that we can hope for aside from a 10 or a jack, and even still, we don't have the great price to call. We know we're gonna face a bet, and if we are just gonna fold this river, we might as well just fold the turn. So it's kind of like giving more credence to folding the turn, but I think I would probably let this one go here on the river, and this is why. When you're playing these high-stakes games and you're playing against really good players with balanced ranges, players that are playing solid strategies, you have to choose which hands you're going to play in a certain spot. So you have to ask yourself a fundamental question. Are there better hands that I can choose from to call this river? Well, I think there are. First of all, there's two reasons why I believe that. One is we have better jacks sometimes. Like, let's be honest, some of the time we're going to have king jack, we're going to have queen jack, and not that that is a difference in terms of our equity versus our opponent's range. Jack 10 and king jack are either ahead or behind. It's not like king jack is going to win and jack 10 is going to lose. But the difference is that you have a better hand, and in terms of creating a balanced strategy, you pick the better hands that you have in order to call from a theory standpoint. Again, we're analyzing this hand online, so I'm getting into some details that I don't normally share just because they aren't normally practical. But when you're playing in these types of games, it is sort of relevant to consider these types of things because you can't look at your opponent. You don't have other information to make decisions, and you know your opponent's going to be putting you to the test all the time, and you have to have a reasonable balanced strategy. So for one reason, we could have better hands to choose from to call. Sometimes we have an ace in our hand, sometimes we have two pairs, sometimes we have sets, sometimes we have better jacks. So I think for that reason we could fold. The other reason is we have a hand that blocks some bluffs. So like we block queen 10, we block 10-9, we block like king 10 of hearts. So our hand blocks some of our opponent's bluffs, which means it's less likely he's bluffing and more likely he's value betting. So I would for sure fold this if I had a spade in my hand. Like if the 10 was a spade, I would for sure fold because then you block way more bluffs. But even still here, we do block some bluffs in this hand. So I think I would just end up pitching this hand and letting it go, even though I wouldn't really like it. But I think I just would like to fold the turn a little bit more. So this is kind of how I go through these hands. If you guys would like a little bit more analysis in terms of like how I go through hands like this one, you can check out our pro membership program at Conscious Poker at the link below, where I go a lot more in depth into the lab and show you guys exactly how I go through these hands and work through these situations to figure out exactly what to do in every situation, regardless of who your opponent is. You can check the link below and learn more about our Conscious Poker Pro membership program. It's really awesome stuff. I believe it's the best place to learn poker on the internet. So check that out if you want more. But for now, I would love to give you guys the results of this hand. So this is what we're going to do. Because this hand is really recent on Reddit, the actual user didn't post the results. So I actually don't know what the hell happened. So this is my 100% straight up, no bias, no bullshit answer in terms of what I think we should do, and I can't see our villain's hand. So I'm just giving you what my raw thoughts are, but what I'm going to do is this. Check out, subscribe to my channel, click that link at the top of this video, and in a day or so, whenever I get the feedback from the user in terms of what actually happened, I will pin the results to the comments. So the pinned comment are going to be the results. So be sure to check back in this video in a little bit to see what the results are, and I'll be responding to comments on this video as well. So be sure to leave your thoughts in a comment below. I definitely read all my comments. I do my best to respond to all of them as well. So be sure to leave your thoughts with what you think about this hand. If you like this video, definitely subscribe to my channel. That lets me know that I'm producing content that you guys like, so I can do more of this type of thing. And like this video, give it a thumbs up. That would be amazing. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time on The Hand of the Day. Cheers.